Hi, this is Gonzalo Lira from El Heraldo de Mexico. Hi, Cillian. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Good, man. Good to see you.
Hi, Barry. Hi, Rebecca. How are you? Thank you so much for your time. I don't know what were you saying before, Tim. So because you were like, oh, now they're listening.
Oh no, because before you come on, which is really nice. There's an image of us that comes on, and we both go.
Oh, you look amazing. Come on.
Oh yeah, apparently, yeah.
You look amazing. Camera loves you. Tell me something. Something that I like a lot about Peaky Blinders, the story of Peaky Blinders, the show and now the movie, is how it uses context, to in a certain way get audiences to understand what was really happening on the streets, how things actually, like historical context makes us get into a moment in history, but you make us get into the moment that people were actually living. So I wanted to ask you, we're in convulsed times, right now. There's wars going on. And this is in the context of a war. So why is it so important for movies, for shows, for arts to get us on the ground on that kind of context? And how does this show, do you think that helps that?
Interesting question. It's unfortunate that it's a perennial one, but it seems to be constantly the case. I don't believe that this is a message film by any means. I believe it's, mainstream entertainment. It's the film version of a successful TV show. However, if it does make people think about, this is history repeating itself, then that's a good thing. But it's not the main ambition of the film. There's a lot of Nazis in Indiana Jones, and that's not the main ambition of the movie. You know what I mean? So I think Steve is a very clever writer, and he knows how to walk that line and how to balance that, I think.
And he also, just on that note, he was telling a story about when he talks about his mum. So his mum was almost a victim during the war, and there was a bombing of the factory.
Yeah, the BSA.
Yeah, and that's how he opens the film. No spoilers intended, but he almost lost his mum in that bombing raid, and that's how he launches the story. So the film exists in a political world, but isn't officially, in a sense, or it doesn't prioritize that. The priority is survival and how you go about surviving. And these guys survive in a very particular way, the Peakies. So, it's about that.
Yeah, primarily, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned the bombing of the factory at the beginning of the movie, but also the family aspects because this is a family story, and something that I like about Peaky Blinders and these characters is how you portray fragile, the fragility of the idea of masculinity, how masculinity was built on those times, and how those characters, although they couldn't allow themselves to show fragile, they were living in a fragile internal world. So I wanted to ask you, how do you build characters that are that fragile, but they have to put on masks that make them seem tough?
It's all predicated on their experiences in the First World War. It's all based around trauma, untreated trauma, really, psychological trauma. So that's what it's all really based around. And that's such a powerful foundation for any character to start off with. And how do you address that? And you can see Arthur in the story addresses it in one way, and Tommy addresses it in a different way. So it's a very smart way of looking at that, because there is a causational reason for why they are the way they are.
Also, in those days, you put on a performance.
Yeah.
You as like you put your clothes on in the morning if you could afford them. There was a performance. In Britain, certainly when I was coming up, the idea of therapy was an American cliche. We just kind of like, it's just so American. It's what they do over there. We don't. And so all of this trauma that had been suffered over the years was untreated.
Yeah.
Especially for those who come up from the working classes and so on. Very much so.
The both of you. Something that I really like about starting with the show and now with the movie is how Peaky Blinders portrays this kind of a masculine world. And I was talking with Tim and with Cillian already, and they were talking how, in a certain way, these characters used to put them like a mask, like a character, to show to the world. So I want to ask you what made you think about masculinity and how fragile it is, and how we built so many things around it to, in a certain way, be part of something.
Yeah, like I was, you know, my granny and my aunt took me in, and my aunt's daughter when I was younger, at least 10, from foster care. So I was essentially raised by 3 women. And I think for me, I've always been able to go to that place and be open and not have to put on a masculine, you know, again, without having a father figure around, and with the absence of my own father, I was looking at the old movies, similar to Peaky and what that looks like, but the old movies, you know, the Brandos and Newman, and to see how they behaved and to latch onto some sort of behaviour of how a man should behave. I remember looking at these, only now I can kind of say this, but that's why I'd be latching onto these old movies and, you know, these actors, because I was looking for that sort of masculine behavioural kind of blueprint to follow. But I've always been very, very open to, you know, always being comfy, you know, opening up, you know, and being vulnerable. And
that's so interesting, Barry. And Rebecca, tell me something. Now listening to Barry talk about that, and how do you build a character like yours, you know, in a world where all these characters have to build that masculine idea of themselves?
It's interesting, isn't it? I've had this conversation with Harriet Waters recently on set. We talked about this idea of what it is to be a powerful woman, you know, because I often get the comment of like, you play powerful. And I think, what is that? Is it because I then come with this idea of masculinity because she speaks her truth? She is not scared of being confrontational. It's tricky to fall, you know, masculine, feminine. I like the idea of taking it away. Because as Barry says, it's sort of that balance of the vulnerability and complete and utter presence to whomever is in front of you. And I think our agendas change depending on whoever is acting in front of us. Are we protecting ourselves? Are we interpreting? Are we shaping their mind? What are we doing in this meeting? And whatever needs to come will come. And that's fun with this character.
Yeah.
It's a constant dance, you know.
But touching on that powerful woman, I know you answered that before as well, you know, and to elaborate on that, again, you know, raised by 3 women, my granny was sort of that father figure for me, you know, and she's more, I'd like to say she's more of a father than a father could have been to me, you know, so just to prove that and hit on that point.
Yeah, because we have this idea that fragility and vulnerability it's feminine feelings. Thank you so much, Rebecca, Barry. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great interview.
Such an amazing, fast conversation. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks, man.
See ya.